Yep, this is the last one. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome back to my Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap-up of all things bookish, booktube, anything else I want to talk about. And today is, in fact, going to be the last Saturday Hodgepodge, and I wanted to explain to you the reasons for that. First of all, if you've noticed, watch my channel, they've become less regular. This would be the 200th Saturday Hodgepodge, which means I've been doing Saturday Hodgepodge almost every Saturday, except recently, for about 4 years. And, you know, I've enjoyed it. I've been able to do a lot of things, but recently what I found is that there's sometimes that I want to make a video on Saturday that really, you know, is the only thing I want to talk about. Maybe it's just a wrap up of my reading for the week. You know, maybe it's something I just want to talk about or make a video about. Maybe it's a specific book. And I find that oftentimes I leave or wait to do that. And then I don't have enough information or enough stuff to talk about for a hodgepodge. And so I just don't make a video, which is why Saturday hodgepodges have been increasingly rare. So for those of you who care about these things, for those of you who Saturday hodgepodge is something that, you know, you are a regular watcher of, I'm sorry. Hopefully by, you know, kind of hemming and hawing and being indecisive about what to do about Saturday Hodgepodge, I've sort of weaned you off of the Saturday Hodgepodge video. That doesn't mean I'm not going to make videos on Saturday. It doesn't mean that some of the videos might not seem kind of like a Hodgepodge video. It just means I'm not going to intentionally make any more Saturday Hodgepodge videos. So this is going to be the last one. And, you know, just to kind of illustrate the point I was making, to get enough information for this, I think I had to wait almost a whole month in November to get enough things that I wanted to talk about. One of which was how I'm not going to be doing the Hodgepodges anymore. But other things I want to talk about, you may have noticed that at the beginning of my videos now, there are unskippable YouTube ads, as if you don't have YouTube Premium. This is a result of a change that YouTube made and not a change that I made. As a monetized channel, they oftentimes change the rules. And while I can still choose not to have mid-roll ads in my videos or my newer videos, I don't have any control over whether or not those ads at the beginning of a video are skippable or not anymore. So my apologies for that. You know, just as a reminder, if it makes any difference to you at all, I do take the money that I make from my YouTube AdSense revenue and I do not donate that to charity. Oftentimes it's just to the Houston Food Bank, which is the largest food bank that I live kind of near, but also to others that we donated to a Great Dane rescue and things like that. So that's what I do with the money. If that helps you to sit through the, you know, 15 to 30 second ad at the beginning, then, you know, there's that. Also, one thing that's true about this month is that I didn't read any of the books, or almost none of the books that I told you I was going to read in my Nonfiction November TBR. I read almost none of them, and I read very few physical books, either electronic on my Kindle or an actual physical book. And that is because I was finishing up the work on my own book, which will, I believe the publication date is now for July of 2024 from Casemate Publishers. You can there are already links up, by the way, and I'll provide a couple of them down below in the show notes. If you wanted to pre-order the book, if you wanted to pre-order the book, you can certainly do that. And I'll try to remember a link to, obviously, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and I think Thrift Books also. There's a link for you can pre-order, or you can just go and, you know, look at the link and see if the book sounds like something you might be interested in. I've been describing the book, which is title is MacArthur's Bloody Butchers. I've been describing the book as a work of military history because it is, but it's also really kind of a on-the-ground sort of story of four men who are members of a very particular military unit that fought in the war in the Pacific, or U.S. military unit that fought in the war in the Pacific, one of whom was my uncle. So you get a lot of kind of personal information about those four men, about what they experienced, and then kind of an overall look at what the military group they were a part of did during World War II. So I kind of tried to blend kind of like a study of a few people with kind of a broader military history and keep everything in context. So there is a lot of human interest, I think, in the story, but I know that, you know, there probably aren't a whole lot of military history readers, but, you know, you can give that a look. Like I said, the links will be down below. So then the biggest part of this video is going to be, by the way, excuse the lighting. It's very gray, gloomy day outside. I have my desk lamp on, which is why there's this kind of golden glow as though I were looking into the briefcase from Pulp Fiction in my face. Sorry about that, but that's what we get today. So I do want to do my Nonfiction November wrap-up. I think the only book on my Nonfiction November TBR that I actually read was Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. This is a memoir of 5 men from her life who died, who were killed, who died in accidents, who, their deaths were tragic. Some relatives of hers, including her brother, and some just friends of hers and her acquaintances. It is really this kind of about this kind of, how racism, drugs, a lack of opportunity, hopelessness really kind of lead to large numbers of death among African-American men. And each story is told really, I think, touchingly. She does a great job of talking about herself and her relationship with these people and putting everything in context and talking about family and kind of the familial aspects of the community where she lived and, her own career, attempting to, establish herself as a writer, etc. It really is a very good book. I read it on my Kindle. I bought a copy of it as an ebook. And I would highly recommend that. This month I will be reading, in December I will be reading Jesmyn Ward's newest book, Let Us Descend, and I'm really looking forward to getting to that. Also, I did a whole video about me and Salmon Rushdie, and I did that when I finished reading Joseph Anton, which I was listening to as an audiobook, which is true of a lot of the things I'm going to talk about here today. I listened to Joseph Anton as an audiobook. I had originally been reading it as an ebook, kind of gave up on it a year ago, and then picked it back up. And I'm glad I did. I was glad I got to the end of it. And, if you want to see my thoughts on that, I'll try to remember to leave a link to my Salmon Rushdie video at the end of this video. You can see more of my thoughts about Joseph Anton. Then the next 3 books are books I did not, plan on reading. They're not on that TBR. They just are things that came up. So because I had a lot of work to do on my book, a lot of, rewriting and, fact checking and editing stuff to do, I pretty much read my own book 3 times this month. It's not a very long book, but it was kind of a painstaking process. I found that listening to audiobooks was really the best way that I could kind of read nonfiction this month. And so I did listen to 2 more books as audiobooks. The first was The Revolutionary, Samuel Adams by Stacy Schiff. You may know that I really am an admirer of Stacy Schiff's biography of Cleopatra. And so I was excited when I could get this book as an audiobook through the Libby app. My library had a copy and it was available as an audiobook. And so I immediately, started listening to it. And Stacy Schiff is a really, really good writer. And I found the book to be entertaining and interesting. Having said that, it's not nearly as good to me as Cleopatra is. I think there's some places where Schiff kind of inadvertently almost repeats herself verbatim. There are a lot of things about Samuel Adams' life that make it kind of hard, I think, to carry a plot forward with him. Number one, he destroyed almost all of his personal papers. So most of what you had to do, which is true of Cleopatra as well, is kind of piece together what Samuel Adams actually did and the role he played in bringing about the American Revolution, independence, from, what other people said and what other people did. And that's difficult, but she did a really good job of that. It's just, I guess maybe I already knew a lot about Samuel Adams and his work, particularly up until around the time of the Boston Tea Party. And so a lot of this wasn't new to me, and it wasn't as good, but it is still very good. It is still a good biography if you're interested in seeing, how somebody who you may only associate with beer or beer brand, what a key role he played in bringing about the American Revolution. This is a really good source. And then the other book I listened to, which was also surprised to be able to get as an audiobook through the Libby app, was The Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe, the author of Say Nothing, which I read and really liked about the Troubles in Northern Ireland. This is a great piece of investigative journalism in which he looks at the Sackler family and how, the Sackler family came to be this huge kind of corporation which produced OxyContin and marketed it as safe, even when they knew it wasn't, or at least didn't know that it was safe, and how they, essentially used their wealth to buy regulatory agencies and, to get out of being really punished in courts for the things they were doing, until ultimately the whole thing fell apart. In the process, they kicked off the opioid epidemic here in the United States, and hundreds of thousands of Americans have died as a result. All of that is good, and if you're looking for a book that will make you mad in the United States and remind you that we do not have equal justice in the United States, that our system is rigged in favor of the rich at the expense of everybody else, this is a great book for that. Having said that, I'm increasingly sensitive to books that in any way seem to express fascination with the ultra wealthy. You may have to be able to tell from my last statement before this that I'm kind of on this kick about this. But I don't find the ultra wealthy fascinating. I don't care what they bought. I don't care how many houses they bought. I don't care that they necessarily, had a fascination with Chinese art or whatever it is. That kind of like fascination of the rich, that kind of lifestyles of the rich and famous kind of fascination no longer works with me at all. I do not care. And while that's certainly not the focus of this book, and I'm not suggesting that Radden Keefe, ended up being an admirer of the Sacklers in any way, shape, or form, there was some of that. And I felt like a little bit too much for the story that he was telling about this tragedy that these people kicked off. And the last book I read was actually a physical book, and I have Joni Heisenberg, commenter extraordinary Joni Heisenberg, to thank for this, because she mentioned that she was reading the Lumumba plot. If you watch my channel, you know that Sub-Saharan Central Africa is a topic that I really like to read about. You may remember that I read the African World War last year or the year before, about essentially what is a devastating war that's cost millions and millions of people their lives in and around the Congo, and how that all played out. I read that last year. And this book specifically, as the name implies, is an investigation about essentially the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, who was elected to be the first prime minister of an independent and democratic Congo. That as soon as Belgium granted the Congo its independence, they held elections, and Lumumba was elected. And he's a fairly extraordinary person. Not always a good person, not always an admirable person, but a fairly extraordinary person. And I think one of the great things about this book is how the character of Lumumba comes through, warts and all. And you can still end up admiring him, even though you can tell that to a certain extent he was in way over his head, and that the Cold War situation in which, the Congo emerged in independence really negatively affected him and his ability to go on being prime minister. And the other great thing about the book is that the last half of it, once it's all set up, reads like a spy novel in which literal CIA agents and elements of people and mercenaries from Belgium end up doing horrible things, and in the end Lumumba is killed, assassinated by Belgians in the Katanga province, and that the United States field agent in the Congo essentially knew this was going to happen and didn't say anything to anybody about it, and therefore let it happen. And how that then set a pattern, or repeated a pattern that had been going on throughout the Eisenhower administration with the Shah of Iran in Guatemala, how that will be followed up then Vietnam, the replacement of Ngo Dinh Diem in Vietnam, and his assassination, the activities of the CIA under Nixon in Chile, that all of these things kind of came from this first real evidence or situation which the United States condoned or made possible, the assassination of a foreign leader that we didn't like. And of course, we didn't like him in the 1960s because we assumed he was a communist, even though he certainly was not. Just I thought a really good book, a really good look at a topic that I think very few Americans or people know about or think about, and it was a really good book. By the way, it looks really chunky, but it's only 436 pages of actual text, and the rest is notes, bibliography, acknowledgments, and so that gives you some idea, I think, also of the amount of research that went into this. By the way, this book was written by Stuart A. Reid, and I believe he writes for Foreign Affairs. And I just thought it was a really, really good book. Anyway, there you go. There is the last Saturday Hodgepodge. I really appreciate all the support for this platform, this type of video over the years. There will be other Saturday videos, as I said, but just not strictly speaking a regular Hodgepodge. Anyway, look forward to your comments in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.